Hey, what's going on, folks? Okay, I didn't think I would ever do this again, but after going through so many messages, so many emails, phone calls, and seeing a lot of videos out there and a lot of information, I know there's still so much confusion amongst the everyday dog owners out there, millions of dog owners that don't understand how tools play into dog training or how they don't play into dog training. Okay. um, I've done so many videos on the e-collar stuff, put the book out on the e-collar stuff, and I started trying to get away from it a little because I didn't think it was necessary anymore. Okay, because there is so much information out there, not just from me but from others also. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad information out there too, so it's really hard to go through everything for the average person and know what is true, what is not, what is good, what is bad. Very, very difficult, very confusing to a lot of people. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to just talk and ramble on, and this video is going to be long. I can almost guarantee it's going to be much longer than most people will sit through. Most people. But the people out there that are struggling with their dogs and haven't been able to find help or been asked to pay for every little piece of information that's given to them, I'm going to once again go through all the basics of the e-collar from start, how we get to the end, and hopefully provide some clarity for people. All right? There's nothing planned here. There's nothing written down, so I'm probably going to be all over the place, but I'm going to try to make it very simple and basic to answer a lot of the questions and go against a lot of the myths that I still hear out there. And to be honest from you, most of those myths come from the balance side of dog training, not from the purely positive. We know where a lot of people stand on that side, and I thought I've done everything I could to kind of get rid of a lot of the false information out there about the tool, but obviously it's not enough, and what other people are doing out there, it's not enough. I'll start off to say right from the start, the information that I'm going to give you here, it's the way I do things. It's not the only way, maybe won't even be the best way from a lot of people's opinions, okay? But I've done this for a long time, extremely successfully, producing dog after dog after dog that is happy and off leash without any negative side effects. And we just see too many still not doing, fair by the animal. And that's what we have to put first. We have to put the welfare of the animal first. So how do we do that and utilize the dog training tools available to us out there, okay? I have a bazillion videos out there how we start the dog off on the e-collars. So many videos, right? Other people do too. They may be a little different, but there's a lot of information out there. I put a book out that has sold thousands and thousands of copies all over the world because it works. It's simple. I wrote it so the average dog owner can understand it and not screw up their dogs, as so many people were doing before without help, at their fingertips. With that being said, I don't have the only book out there. Pat Nolan has a phenomenal book out there on e-collars. World-class, phenomenal trainer, legend in the field, also has a book out. Get his book also, not only my book, okay? The Monks of New Skeet and Mark Goldberg just came out with a new book, all based on e-collar training. I love all the Monks books, and with the addition of Mark Goldberg, it just makes it that much better. Get that book also. Don't only go by my information. Go to the information you have available and do your own research and see what suits you the best. Okay, there's a few other books out there written on e-collars. I'm sorry I'm not mentioning them, but I haven't read them. If I haven't read them, I can't recommend them, but there's a couple of other books out there too. But Pat Nolan's book and the Monks of New Skeet and Mark Goldberg's book, I could say I've read, and they're all fantastic, like absolutely fantastic. Not exactly what I do, but a lot of similarities, okay? So support everyone that's putting out good information. Now, let's get started a little bit here on the actual e-collar work where so many people are failing. And what triggered this today was, I try to go through all the videos people send me. I don't get to see all of them. but I've seen a lot of videos this week, people doing it themselves, and, you know, just really upsetting at times. Really upsetting at times. But what really triggered it was I saw a couple of videos that trainers were putting out, and it wasn't like the worst thing in the world, or I'm not saying that, but I think they provided a lot of not so clear information for the average dog owner, and that's where people get screwed up and then start messing dogs up, and we just can't have that. Okay, I want the average dog owner to understand something. The e-collar is just a tool. It's not a magic wand. Okay, you can't put an e-collar on your dog and fix its problems. Let me repeat that. If you have behavioral issues with your dog, running out and putting an e-collar on the dog isn't going to fix it. Most likely, you're going to make everything worse. So do not do that. I could tell everybody watching this video right now, find a professional trainer, don't do it on your own. And that would be a blanket statement that just always isn't fair and true. And here's why. There's still a ton of trainers out there not doing very good work with the e-collar, still harming dogs. I don't want someone going to someone like that, okay? So that's not the case. If I haven't received thousands of messages from all over the world, people who have never trained a dog in their life, that have not gotten their dog to where they're really happy with the dog, off leash, well behaved, never messed their dog up, dog is happy, then I wouldn't be saying this. But I'm telling you right now, if the average dog owner truly cares about the animal, wants the best for their dog, and they attempt to utilize the tool on their own and learn properly, they could do really incredible things. I wouldn't say that if I haven't been contacted by thousands of people over the past 3 years, okay? And longer than that. Before my book came out, just the videos alone have provided a lot of information for people, right? I do it in a way to where even if you mess up the training, which most people will in the beginning, every single person I work with, I tell them, you're going to mess this up all week. Don't worry about it. You're not going to mess your dog up because of the way we do it. That's really important to understand, okay? So a few important things before you get started with the e-collar work that would be really beneficial, all right? It's really, really important that your dog understands the basic communication between you and the dog and the basic commands on a leash and a flat buckle collar. Basic commands, I mean the recall, come to you, sit, down, place. Every dog should be able to walk next to you nicely on a loose leash. If you don't have any of that, then you're not ready to get further advanced with tools, especially the e-collar, okay? If you're good with the dog, the e-collar can make you better. If you're bad with the dog, the e-collar will destroy you and your animal. And the dog always pays the price. So you have to have some kind of basic knowledge of how the dog learns, how the dog understands the information that you're trying to provide to it. That's very, very important, okay? You want all those things in check. The dog should be able to walk with you nicely. The dog should understand the basic commands. Come, sit, down, place. Simple things, right? The dog should understand the communication with the leash. You should have a reward marker or a clicker. Reward marker, meaning when the dog does something you ask, you mark it with that marker and the reward follows. Your dog should absolutely know a release command also. A release command. With me, you see me with my dogs, it's free dog. That means I no longer need your attention. Go be a dog. Go sniff, go pee, go poop, do what you want. Basic fundamentals, right? Your dog, this is the least amount that you should be able to provide your dog before trying to utilize tools. In this case, we're just talking about the e-collar, okay? Once your dog knows that stuff, that doesn't take long either, because the beautiful thing about the animal is the second you start providing this information properly, the dog learns very quickly. Let me also say, no matter how well you do in teaching your dog obedience, all the commands, any tools, off-leash obedience, outdoors, all that stuff, no matter how good that stuff is, if you are not living properly with your animal inside the home, it's useless, because that's 80% at least of where you need to be. The behavior with the animal is everything, and obedience doesn't automatically equal good behavior. Okay, I know a lot of really highly trained dogs in the obedience world and dog sports and competition world that live in a crate because people can't live with them. The behavior has to be focused on first. We're not going to get into that in this video because I could spend hours talking about that, and I have in the past, so you can go back and find the stuff. I've done e-collar videos like this. I started 12 or 13 years ago when I made the first video where I sat down and gave people a step-by-step, okay? Very dry, very boring, but it was extremely well received. But it's been so long, let's update it. And with all the new people that come to my stuff now, they don't get this, they don't go back and find all those old videos. There's 500 and something videos out there on YouTube. They're not always easy to find. So let's make it a little more modern now, okay? And we're already 11 minutes into this, and I know it's hard to sit here and watch, but I have to get all this stuff out there, okay? So let's say you're where you need to be, you're ready to start the e-collar work. First thing is you have to have quality equipment. I do not allow the people I work with to use cheap bargain e-collars. Won't happen. I just received a message from someone yesterday, you know, that was having trouble and lit their dog up by accident. Said their e-collar is good. It goes from 0 to 100, so I'm thinking it's one of the popular brands, and it was some $50 e-collar. You can't do that. If you try to save money on your e-collar, your dog's going to pay the price. Always. You have to have quality equipment, okay? I use two brands. I use the Chameleon from Martin System, and I use e-collar Technologies. Most of my clients use e-collar Technologies, the Mini Educator, all right? With both of those collars, unless you're working with like a Doberman or a German short hair pointer, something like with really short hair, no hair, I've moved just about every dog to the feather contacts from the Martin System on each side, or the winged contact system from e-collar Technologies. Every single dog. I rarely use regular contact points with any dog I train anymore. Like I said, unless it's like a Doberman or a German short hair pointer or a Great Dane, something with really short hair, okay? Because any kind of dog that has a little bit of hair there, one of the most difficult things that most people still struggle with is making good contact, all right? So let's talk about starting off properly and making good contact. A few things you need to do to ensure you're making good contact. For one, the dog's neck must be brushed out thoroughly. Dead hair will prevent the e-collar from making good contact. You have to keep your dog's neck brushed constantly. Keep the dead hair out of there, okay? When it is brushed out clean, all the dead hair is removed, and you place the e-collar on the dog, you know, usually off to one side or the other. I don't like putting the e-collar right on the larynx here. I like it off one side or the other. I don't like it on top of the neck like I see people doing. I don't like that at all. I don't understand why they do that, okay? What you want to do is when you come around and you put that strap around the dog, you want whatever kind of contacts you have to come straight in, right? When you pull your buckle through, you're going to think it's tight enough. Probably 95% of the people have it way too loose. What you need to do is take your finger under the buckle and pull out all the hair, because any hair that's in that buckle, it's going to feel tight when in actuality it's not. You have to remove all the hair from the buckle, cinch the strap down, whatever kind of strap you're using, tight enough to where you could barely get 2 fingers under the e-collar strap. That's where it needs to be. It has to make good contact. Has to be tight enough to make solid contact. Luckily for all of us today, the modern equipment is so incredible. Making good contact is very easy these days with the feather contacts from the Martin Systems and the wing contacts from the e-collar Technologies. And normally you don't have to put the e-collar so tight because of that. beautiful. If you have a German Shepherd or a dog like that, don't even attempt to use regular contact points anymore. You want the feathers or the wings on a dog like a German Shepherd. Every single time, you're going to have much easier chance making good contact, all right? Now, why is it so important that the e-collar is tight enough? For one, you can't have the e-collar move around. If you can move it without unloosening it, it's way too loose, okay? 2 fingers under the strap should be tight. And here's why. If your e-collar isn't making really good contact, consistent contact, when we start looking for the dog's lowest level, right? We start at 0, we start going up. Tap, 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 tap. We're going up levels to find the dog's lowest level that it perceives. Let me repeat that. The lowest level the dog perceives. That's where we're starting. Gives you some kind of signal. It may be the dog's breathing and then the mouth closes. That tells you it felt it. You might see an eye twitch. The dog may turn around and look at its butt. All these little things. The dog may get startled, like it just got stung by a bee. Dog may not show you anything. We'll talk about that later if that's the case. These are things you have to look at. That's what we're looking for. The lowest level perceived by the dog. That's where we're starting the conditioning process. Okay? Now, you find the dog's level, what do? That's where we're ready to start. Hopefully the dog's a little hungry. You didn't just feed the dog and it's fat and lazy and doesn't want to move. You have the dog's kibble. With the e-collar stuff, I don't mind you using something a lot more enticing. I used to use the, Natural Balance food roll or the Red Barn food roll. I keep it cut up in the refrigerator, take a handful of it, put it in my pouch, it's always ready to go. We want the process for the dog to be a good experience, not a negative experience. Again, I've shown that hundreds of times. It's never a bad experience for the dog. Our job, a lot of people out there, this is what a lot of trainers say. They teach all the obedience without the e-collar, which is great. Nothing wrong with that. And then they overlay the e-collar to reinforce the obedience. Again, nothing wrong with that. That's what a lot of people do. I don't do that. I do it a little differently. I look at it 2 separate things. So I teach all the obedience with a leash and a flat collar. I build the relationship. The relationship is still number 1. Always. The dog has to believe in you and has to trust you, right? I teach the obedience without the e-collar. Then what I do is I don't put the e-collar on and start reinforcing the obedience that the dog knows with the e-collar. What I do is I teach the e-collar completely separate. I teach it as a whole different language. This very strange stimulation that the dog feels, even though it's very low levels, is completely foreign to the dog. The dog doesn't understand what it means. If you want the dogs to look like the dogs that I work with, if you want them to look like that, then the dog has to have clarity of the language. You have to teach the dog what it means. Once the dog understands what that strange sensation means, knows how to turn it off, knows how to better its situation, knows how to produce a reward on its own, then you're going to see a dog doing things with happiness, eagerness. It's never going to look down in the dumps because there's no confusion, okay? That's very important. So I take it separately and I teach it on the side separately. Let's explain that. We start the conditioning process, right? In my book, and years ago, I always used to use a 15-foot leash. I used to tell people, I'm not so crazy about that anymore because too many people struggled with the 15-foot line getting caught under the dog. So I do most dogs now with a 10-foot line. I like the 10-foot length a little better. It's a little easier to handle for most people, right? With the leash attached to a regular collar, we never put the leash on the e-collar. We don't want to be pulling on the e-collar. We put the leash on the regular collar, okay? Once we are there, we found the dog's working level. Let's say the dog is 6 feet away from you, right? We know the dog feels it. Dog has no idea what to do when it feels it, but it does know the recall. So now we're going to take that recall command, come or here, whatever you use, we're going to use what the dog knows to start teaching the meaning of that e-collar. So what I mean by that, the e-collar comes on, continuous. Button is held down right before you give the command. before, not at the same time. We have to have clarity for the dog, okay? The e-collar comes on before the dog, before you say the command. So let's say it's Luca, right? We're training Luca. The e-collar comes on, I say, Luca, come. The second that dog turns to come my way, not when it's halfway or when it gets to me, the second it turns to come my way, the e-collar stimulation goes away. The dog produces that by doing what was asked. And then we mark it with a yes, and the reward comes. Another reason why the reward marker is so important that the dog knows. When the dog starts to turn and the e-collar goes away, the stimulation goes away, okay, the dog did that. It learns how to turn it off. But then when the dog hears the reward marker, that builds speed for the recall. I see a lot of trainers running away for the dog when they start doing this part, backing up to entice the dog to come. I don't do that, and here's why. When you do that, the dog is going to pay attention to the physical cue, you moving away, and now that's what the dog is learning. You're luring, not with food or a toy, but with your body. I want to stand still and not move much. I want the dog to learn what that stimulation means very quickly, okay? So I'm not moving back, enticing the dog to come to me. If the dog doesn't come to me or is struggling, let's go over that. I say, e-collar comes on, Luca, come. He doesn't come right away. E-collar stays on, and I start using the leash with straight line pressure. When I say straight line pressure, I mean parallel to the ground. Barely using it. I want as little leash pressure as possible just to help guide the dog which direction I want him to come, because he should know leash pressure already. So the second I provide a little pressure with the leash and the dog turns to come my way, e-collar goes off, we mark, we reward. Very simple. We're doing 3 things to get the dog to learn what that stimulation is, okay? We're using the verbal command, we're using the e-collar stimulation that the dog doesn't know, and we're using leash pressure, which the dog does know. We're using those 3 things together to teach the dog what that e-collar stimulation means. Teach him a whole new language. Okay, very, very important that we provide that clear information to the dog. The dog can't fail here, okay? When we do it this way, when I started doing it this way years ago, the beautiful thing was there was no longer any confusion with the dog. The way we used to do it back when, years ago, even though I was never a heavy-handed trainer, we weren't clear enough with the dog. We did a lot of e-collar stimulation at the same time as the command. We didn't use a lot of rewards. All of these things put a lot of dogs in a funk for 2, 3, sometimes 4 days because there was a lot of confusion. And so then the dog would look down in the dumps, not because you were hurting it, because the dog didn't know what the hell you wanted. We weren't clear in the training. Now this way, the training is so damn clear, the dog gets it right away. It becomes a positive experience. We're never causing, at this time, we're not even using discomfort for the dog. The dog barely perceives what it feels, and we're teaching him what it means at very low levels. So later on down the road, when we do provide the dog that off-leash freedom, if we have to stop the dog in a dangerous situation, higher levels will never affect the dog in a negative way. We'll get to there. We're not going to go there just yet, okay? Right now, we're just conditioning the dog like that. So the e-collar comes on, Luca, come. The second he turns to come our way, e-collar goes away, we mark and reward, right? Very clear to the dog. Now, what happens with a lot of dogs is they start sticking by your side. Even before you do this, some dogs won't leave your side. So what do you do with that, Tom? I have videos on all this stuff, guys, and it's in the book step by step, but I'm going to give it to you in one spot here so it'll be a little easier to understand. Couple of things. We do 2 different things with the dog at our side and doesn't want to move. The first thing we do is, if the dog is at our side, how do we create distance? Well, there's a few things we could do. How do we create some distance? So right from the start, what we're going to do is put the dog at our side, and I'm going to start walking in a straight line with the dog next to me. Okay? When the dog's next to me and we're going at a good pace, e-collar comes on, I back straight up and recall the dog. What that does is the dog's forward momentum as we're moving forward provides you little bit of distance automatically. It'll work every time, okay? So again, we're walking at a good pace. The dog's at our side. I press the e-collar, back up, Luca, come. He has to stop and turn around. Again, we mark it, the e-collar goes away, we mark it and reward. We're creating some space using the dog's momentum. Very simple, very easy, but very effective. The other thing we do are the 180-degree turns. This is the one time in the conditioning phase where I'm not using a command. Well, maybe not the only time, but I'm not using a command and I'm not using a reward. So again, with the dog at our side, we start walking in a straight line, right? When I go to turn the other way, as I turn, I go tap, tap on the e-collar. Tap, tap, 2 times usually, and turn and go the other way. We're just teaching the dog to follow that stimulation, follow me. We're not saying nothing, we're not rewarding. Again, we're giving that dog that low-level stimulation. In this sense, in this way, one of the ways in the conditioning phase, teaching him to follow the tap. Picture it, we're walking in, and again, there's plenty of videos I have out there demonstrating all of this, but I'm gonna give it to you in one spot here. We're walking in a straight line. I literally pivot and turn the opposite direction, 180 degrees. And as I do that, tap, 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 if you have to, tap, not tap, 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 that kind of cadence. The second the dog turns, it comes with you, the tapping stops. We don't say nothing, we don't mark, we don't reward. Okay, very, very simple. Another thing you can do, if the dog is food motivated, take a little piece of food, show it to the dog, throw it towards the end of the line. Let the dog go get it. When he's eating the food, e-collar comes on, Luca, come. He turns to come your way, e-collar goes away, mark and reward. This is all part of the conditioning phase, all right? You're going to practice doing this very simple, basic stuff, teaching the dog new language a few times a day, 5-10 minutes tops. That's it, very simple. 15 minutes if you're taking your time between repetitions and hanging out and letting the dog be and just practicing the recalls. But that would be the longest, no longer than 15 minutes, but usually 5 to 10 minutes if the communication is clear. When you're done, put the dog inside, put it in a crate, let it relax. Let the dog have some soak time, just chill out, all right? Let me go back with the e-collar. Don't put the e-collar on and start training and then take it off when you're done. Okay, you're going to create a collar-wise dog. Put the e-collar on. I don't care if you let him wear it for 30 days. I don't, but it's okay if you want him to wear it a little while every day for a week or 2 or 3 or 4, just to get accustomed to have it on without ever using it. Totally okay to do that. I've never done that. There's nothing wrong with it if you do it. Okay, nothing wrong with it at all. When you put the e-collar on, don't go outside and train. Give it a half hour, just let the dog be a dog. If you're going to have the collar on for extended periods throughout the day, every 3 or 4 hours, make sure you take it off, put it somewhere else on the neck so the dog doesn't get irritated. All right? All these little things, again, all these tips are in my book and in many free videos. I'm sure there's going to be things I forget to say in this video today, but I'm going to keep this going and we'll do several parts to this if we have to get all the information out there. All right? And by the way, in that next phase, that intermittent phase, that's where we teach the dog to listen whether there's an e-collar on or not. Because the end goal with all dogs is that the dog responds when it's off leash with no tools on. That's the way we prepare the dog. That's the way we train like this, okay? So back to the conditioning phase, all right? We did a few different things there. Very simple, very basic. How long are you going to do this for? Well, that depends on your ability and the dog's ability. I stay in the intermittent phase for 2 or 3 days, okay? I take it real easy, 2 or 3 days. And then I jump right into the intermittent phase. In the conditioning phase, which we're talking on now, when the dog's doing very well, right? Responding very well, not a lot of conflict, he's happy, I like to add the place command right away because we always like to teach the opposite commands. Come to me and go away, okay? So we start utilizing the place command, which the dog should know well already. So example, we'll use Luca again. I start off very close to the place command. The dog knows the place command. We're not teaching anything with the e-collar. Remember that. We're not teaching anything. We're not using the e-collar to teach the obedience. we are using the obedience the dog knows to teach the meaning of the e-collar. And another thing I want to stress, guys, I have a lot of success with the e-collar. Not because I'm good with the e-collar. I have a lot of success with the tool because I'm good with the dogs. You have to have that ability with the dogs to have success with the e-collar. If you do, it'll enhance it. If you don't, it'll destroy you and the dog. I can't stress that enough, okay? So now, we want to start adding the place command, which the dog knows well already. So, I'm a foot, 2 feet away from the place board. Really, really close. E-collar comes on, continuous. Luca, place. He gets up there, e-collar goes away, yes, reward. And you practice that, close to it. Close to it. Again, now we're teaching the dog when he feels the e-collar with nothing being said, without the recall command, there's other things that he's going to use to turn it off. So it's not just run at my side and stick by me. Because a lot of people, they make that mistake, and then anytime they feel the e-collar, no matter what they tell it to do, the dog's running to get close to them. Okay, so later on, if you want to do more advanced stuff off leash and from a distance, that's where people struggle. So again, now during that conditioning phase, we're using the recall and the place command. With my own Luca, he was very difficult to condition to the e-collar. He was 9 months old when I started. Why he was so difficult was he didn't leave my side, ever. He didn't take his eyes off of me. We made our video at 9 weeks old. You can go back and watch that video. There was no having distance from him. He stayed glued on me. So with Luca, I had to use the place command to condition the dog first. Get him to go away from me. Okay? But that's rare. That's very rare. He was the one dog I had to do that with. And every now and then you run into a dog the same situation. All right? So that's the conditioning phase. 2-3 days. If you have to do this for a week, if you have to do it for 2 weeks, no problem. There's no rush. You take your time and you read the dog. Is the dog having a good time training? Is the dog struggling? If the dog is struggling, then you have to ask yourself why. You're doing something wrong, because the dog should not be struggling while you're doing this. Not at all. All right? So you've done the conditioning phase. Let's go ahead and talk about the next phase, which is the most important phase and the time we're going to spend the most time, that intermittent phase. Okay? This is where we start training the dog to respond to us, whether there's an e-collar on or not, whether there's a reward or not. We do a lot of training here. There's no rush to get out of it. This is where we're going to spend a long time. This is where we start adding some distractions. We start going to new places. We start adding some distance. We start adding real world training in that intermittent phase. So usually day 3 or 4, I'm jumping into this. You take your time. You don't have to do that. And when you start adding distractions in this phase, guys, don't go right into the fire. Don't go outside a dog park around all these things, because you're going to struggle. All right? And just know that low working level that you train the dog with at home during the conditioning phase without distractions, that's going to change as you start adding distractions. You know, if your dog works on a 5 or a 6 on a mini educator, which is pretty average for most dogs, when you're in the conditioning phase at home with no distractions, when you start working away from home with real distractions, you're going to automatically, the lowest level the dog perceives is going to change. And they're all different. So there isn't just one go-by. You understand what I'm saying? There's not just one go-by. This is how you have to learn to read your dog and understand your dog along the way. And we're teaching the dog how to learn here. It's very important. So now, when we start the intermittent phase, let's talk about that. And I could stay in the conditioning phase, guys, and talk about so many little things, but we could spend hours there. And I don't want to make this a 5-hour video. So we're going to try to keep it knocked down a little bit here, all right? It's already long, and people will complain about this, believe me when I tell you. So now we're jumping into that intermittent phase. The 4 different combinations, okay? This is where we start mixing it up. The 4 combinations are this. We're using the e-collar with a reward, just like we did in the conditioning phase. Then we start using the e-collar without a reward. And this is also where the dog needs to know a release command, right? Then we're using the command without an e-collar and a reward. And then no e-collar, no reward. We're practicing each of the obedience commands that the dog knows in these 4 combinations, with distractions, without distractions, different places, different scenarios, okay? When I started teaching this years ago, I wasn't teaching it really well. I wasn't clear enough to my clients. I would say, I would tell them sometimes you use the e-collar, sometimes you don't, sometimes you reward, sometimes you don't. Every 5th time, every 6th time, it wasn't very clear. And then I went and went to a Tobias Olenek seminar a few years back in Tennessee, and we train this very similarly. Actually, we do this, I think, identical, because we kind of learned it from the same person. But I told him at the time he was teaching it so much better. He's the one that broke it down to these 4 combinations so clearly and explained it so well. And he learned it from somebody else too. And I told him at the time, I'm doing the same thing, but you're teaching it much, much better. So the exact terminology and the scale that you see, thank you, Tobias, for that, because you did a wonderful job really making that very clear for a lot of people, okay? Very, very clear. So now we start off. What I like to do sometimes is, sometimes I'll pick one command, sometimes I'll work all the basics. But we're starting to practice now in that intermittent phase using all 4 combinations, okay? This is where you don't go in order, you're just mixing up. So example, I take Luca outside. Let's say I'm just taking Luca outside to go to the bathroom. I'm just using Luca for the sense, that dog's rarely had an e-collar on in his life. But let's say I'm just taking him to go to the bathroom. I do this with clients' dog. We're not going out to train, I'm just letting the dog go out to the bathroom. I'll pick one command before we go out to the bathroom and put it through the intermittent phase just for some extra work with that one command. So let's say I say we're gonna work the place command in the 4 combinations, right? Again, I have videos for all this stuff that you could watch step by step with the sound box, so you know exactly what I'm doing, all right? So let's say I take a dog out, I have a client's dog out, I'm taking him to go to the bathroom. I say I'm gonna work the place command in the intermittent phase. How does that look? Okay, I go around whatever I'm using for a place, e-collar comes on, Luca place, dog gets up there, e-collar goes away, I mark and I reward. Now the dog's free to get off because that's an active release, right? I marked it, we're done, we're moving around. Next time, e-collar comes on, Luca place, he gets up there, e-collar goes away, I say nothing. I start moving around, I'm teaching the dog he has to remain up there. I may tell him, hey, good job, I like what you're doing, keep doing it. I'm just moving around. When he's up there long enough, I say free dog. I release him, now he can go, all right? Those are 2 combinations. 3rd time, no e-collar. Luca place, he jumps up there, yes, I reward, right? 3rd combination, no e-collar with a reward. Now the last time, I may say Luca place, there's no e-collar, he jumps up there, there's no reward. Now he's just hanging up there, I'm moving around. If he goes to get off, I say and I use spatial pressure to move into him. I'm not hitting him with the e-collar, I'm not physically punishing it, I'm teaching him what I want. This is all about the teaching. There is no punishment here, okay? No positive punishment. We may withhold a treat or something if he gets it wrong, but in this case, if the dog goes to get off, I say and I use spatial pressure closing into him, teaching the dog what I want, okay? It's all about the dog learning. I want the dog not to be scared to make mistakes. You guys have seen dog after dog after dog here. I never hammer a dog for making a mistake. It's my job to show him, no, buddy, that's not what I want. I need you to do it this way. So I make sure the dog knows exactly what we are doing, exactly what is expected before there's any punishment there, okay? And I use very little punishment in dog training. Not against it, and I use it. It has to be used properly. But the more clear the training is to the dog, the less punishment you have to use. I promise you. So that's the intermittent phase for that specific command, the place command, right? Then I let the dog go to the bathroom, we walk to the end of the concrete, gets to the grass, the dog waits, I say free dog, now I don't need your attention, go be a dog. Go sniff, go pee, go poop, do whatever you want. We're going to practice in that intermittent phase first without distractions, just like in the conditioning phase. I don't care how long you do that. There is no timeline. You go at your pace, at the dog's pace. You have to be comfortable and the dog has to be comfortable. Now, when the dog's doing really well, now you can start venturing out and start adding some distractions, okay? let's get back to the intermittent phase. Now, let's say you understand those 4 combinations. The dog understands those 4 combinations. Now, let's say you say, Luca, place without the e-collar. Now you're going to give him the command without the e-collar, and the dog doesn't place. This is where you can follow up with the e-collar after the command. Tap, 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 before the dog gets up there. I'm not using the continuous here. Okay, it's a tap, tap, tap. When the dog jumps up there, then you can mark and reward or not mark and reward. Okay, so let me repeat that. In the intermittent phase, you're using the 4 combinations. If you give the dog a command and the e-collar is not used as negative reinforcement before the command, and the dog does not perform the command it knows well, that's where you can follow up with the e-collar after the command. Again, example, Luca, come, doesn't come immediately, tap, 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 dog turns to come, yes, reward, or you don't have to say nothing. Does that make sense? I hope that's very clear. Very simple, very basic stuff, guys. Very basic stuff. This intermittent phase is where you have to take your time. You're mixing it up. This is where the dog is truly learning to respond whether there's an e-collar on or not. There's so many more things I can go over here, but like I said, we can make this video for hours. It's very simple. It's not complicated, okay? I have shown you guys dog after dog after dog. I have showed you little dogs that pee if you go near them, that they're scared to death. I have showed you every type of dog that struggles with behaviors. I have shown them perform beautifully and happily, full of life, using the e-collar. Why is that? Someone shared one of my videos on a Purely Positive page, and I don't get a lot of grief from Purely Positive. I really don't. You know, I get along with a lot of them. I talk to a lot of them. A lot of them have made the jump, okay? But someone shared, Purely Positive trainer, saw one of my videos and said, okay, this dog is actually really happy. I don't understand. There's an e-collar being used. And they shared that video in a Purely Positive dog group on Facebook. I thought this was the best response ever that someone in that group said. They said that that dog I was training, that was as happy as could be, was abused into being happy. Think about that. Think about how crazy people are. The dog was abused into being happy. Dogs don't lie, folks. They don't lie. All right? I'm trying to think of what else we can cover in the intermittent phase here, but it is really simple. It's really basic. Once we get out of the intermittent phase, let's say now you've been doing this for 2 months, 3 months, and your dog is just kicking ass, right? Your dog's doing really well. Let's give another example. Now your dog is off leash and you're taking it for a walk and it's running around and you're in a public place. You have to learn where that e-collar is to be set when you are out and about for that just in case moment, okay? In other words, if you're training around the house on a 5 or a 6, that's not going to cut it out in the real world. A lot of people like to dial up on the e-collar, meaning you give the dog a command, it blows you off, you hit the working level and you're turning the dial until the dog responds. I don't do that, ever. I don't like dialing up. I want to know my dog where it needs to be. That where if we are out, or a client's dog, and it's off leash, and I say, you know, Rita, come, and she doesn't come, I know what level I need to be at to reinforce that command that the dog knows. As a matter of fact, we just did that. We just did that with that specific dog and everything out in a public park the first time she was off leash. Around traffic, busy place, dogs, people, everything. You have to know where it needs to be, because the second you start dialing up, you lost the opportunity to deliver the communication at a perfect time for the dog to understand what is expected. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's very important. With that being said, the other thing, once the training's never done, but now let's say the e-collar is just there. So you have the 3 phases: the conditioning phase, where we start teaching the dog the meaning of the e-collar; the intermittent phase, which is the second phase where we will spend the most time, where we start adding new things and distractions and distance and new places, right? We spend a lot of time there to get to the final phase, which is just the maintenance phase. The e-collar is there in case you need it when your dog is off leash. So now for these angry balanced trainers that say your dog isn't truly off leash if it has an e-collar on, my question to everyone is, how does the dog perceive it? Does the dog get the off leash freedom? Does the dog perceive it as being off leash? Because I can guarantee you it does. With that being said, once we get through that maintenance phase, once we get to that maintenance phase, out of the intermittent phase, I'm no longer using the continuous button before a command. Okay? I may do that to go back and practice a little bit, to keep the dog fresh, right? Very little here and there, rarely. But once we're in that maintenance phase, and let's say your dog rarely sees an e-collar. The only time it gets the e-collar on is when you're going out, you're going hiking, or you're going to a park, and your dog's going to be off leash. It's important to go back every now and then and just keep the dog refreshed and practice in that intermittent phase, okay? But in reality, once we're out in the real world and the e-collar is there for that what-if moment, because you should be prepared for that what-if moment in case your dog makes a mistake or you make a mistake, things happen, then I'm no longer using the e-collar before a command. Then it's always going to be just a command. I give the dog a chance to respond, all right? So let's say, again, we'll use Rita, my German short-hair pointer I had here for a board and train not too long ago. First time we took her to a public park in Nashville, our owners were very nervous. Letting her off leash around a lot of cars, busy roads, all kinds of people, all kinds of dogs. But I know where her e-collar needed to be, and it didn't need to be very high, just not on a number 5 or 6 or working level at home. And we let the dog run, okay? Let her go. And then we say, I think the first time we called her, Rita, come. She hesitated because her nose was in the ground. That's where we follow up with a tap to reinforce what the dog knows. She turned around, came flying to us, never had to do that again. But you have to understand something, guys. We are taking the time beforehand to teach the dog what that language means. There is no confusion. So later on down the road, if you throw a ball by accident, you didn't see a car coming, and that dog's running, and it's about to run into the street to get the call, no matter how high of level you have to go to stop that dog in its tracks, there's not going to be any negative association with it. I can guarantee you that. I promise you. But here's also the other thing. When you take your time and you train this properly, the beautiful thing about the e-collar is when you train it properly, you rarely have to use the e-collar. Again, I can guarantee you that. I have people all over the world that contact me every day that have never trained a dog in their life. Ever. Regular, everyday dog owners that have accomplished this on their own without a trainer. I have people every day that have been to trainers and spent thousands of dollars with no success and then have accomplished all of this on their own. I promise you. I promise you. Okay? You have to give it a chance. Me as a dog trainer, anyone who sees this as a professional dog trainer, you should be able to take your dog anywhere off leash without tools. You should be. You're a dog trainer. And if you can't, you shouldn't be charging people to train a dog, because you shouldn't be able to call yourself a professional dog trainer if you need an e-collar on your dog to get it to respond to you in the real world. Does that mean you shouldn't have an e-collar on your dog? Not at all. Always be prepared for what if. With that being said, to a lot of the extremely arrogant people out there that criticize the use of the tool, the use of any tool, it's our job as professional dog trainers to help the general public and to save as many dogs as possible. Okay? Hundreds of thousands of dogs get put to sleep every year because of behavioral problems. Maybe more. I don't know what the number is. I'm sure it's probably in the millions, Maybe 3 million. I thought last time I heard. That could be wrong. Don't hold me to it. A lot of dogs get put down because of behavioral issues. The 70-year-old woman that weighs 95 pounds soaking wet cannot be expected to learn to be a dog trainer and control her Rottweiler like a professional dog trainer should be able to. It's not fair. The beautiful thing about proper use of the tool is it takes away all the physical advantages of the dog to the human. Okay? Levels the playing field. It gives people an opportunity to do wonderful things with its animal and provide off-leash freedom. Every single dog deserves to be let loose and run Dogs are meant to run. They have 4 legs for a reason. They should experience that freedom. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. But there's thousands and thousands of people out there, probably millions, whose dog never get off a leash. The only chance they get to get off leash is going to a dog park. And we all know what dog parks are like. They're awful. No dog should ever be in a dog park. But yet, a lot of people, the only opportunity they have to get their dog off leash is to bring it to a place that creates a lot of problems, right? We have shelters and humane societies, rescues all over the world. Dogs are dying constantly. A lot of them just to fulfill their needs of their ideology, where they refuse to ever use any kind of training tools or punishment to save a dog's life. A lot of people out there would rather see a dog put down than correct an unwanted behavior. That's disgusting. Humans are the most selfish creature on earth, okay? Just as selfish as can be. And a lot of people will never go against their beliefs to save the animal. They'd rather see the dog die. And every day, dogs die all over the world, all right? I'm not exaggerating to you guys. I promote a lot of people. I try to promote a lot of good people, right? I mentioned other people's books here, not just mine. I rarely promote my own stuff. And the only thing I have to sell is a book that I priced at $10 for a reason. It has sold thousands and thousands of copies all over the world for $10 because it's basic and simple. But I also promoted Pat Nolan's book. I also promoted the Monks of New Ski and Mark Goldberg's book. I want people to have the information and start saving more dogs. For the purely positive people out there that refuse to open their mind and learn how to save more dogs, shame on you. Shame on you. It's about you, not the dog in that case. You don't care about the dog. You care about your beliefs and your ideology, which is so false and negative, it's disgusting. Some of these big, huge star trainers out there, the biggest stars on YouTube and TV, that lie to people daily, your dogs are awful. Your dogs have no life. Some of you don't even have dogs. Shame on you. You don't care about the dog the way I do. I promise you. For the people on the so-called balance side of training that still ridicule people and steer people away from using the tools that will help them, shame on you too. You're a bigger problem than the people on the other side. You're going against what we need you to jump on board and, again, save more dogs. Not everyone can be a dog trainer. Our job as dog trainers is to teach them the best we can to learn as much about dog training as possible. But not everyone has the same physical and mental abilities or the same desires and wants to spend a ton of time training a dog. People are busy. People are really busy. And so how can we make it realistic? Every single person and client I work with, I look at that person, not just the dog. We all know I look at each dog as an individual, but each person has to be looked at as an individual. How much is this person going to be able to give me? How much are they willing to give me? How much are they capable of giving me? And then I have to base the training around the people. It's that simple, guys. The only thing that matters is the dog. More and more people are going over to paid programs that people can jump on and pay for information. Nothing wrong with that. Everyone has a right to make a living. I'm going to continue to put out as much free content as possible, as long as I can afford to do so, and try to help as many people as possible. Because for the thousands of emails I get every single week, that's the motivation for me. I love it. So sometimes you get down in the dumps and you're like, this is exhausting. Trying to put out more stuff and help you, it's exhausting. But when I see the information that comes into my inbox, my phone, or my text messages, for the people that their lives have been completely changed for the good, that's the motivation to keep doing it. So for me, I will continue to put out free information, no charge, okay? No charge. If you guys want more interviews, give me some names, people you want to see interviewed. We're going to start beefing that up too, to get other people's perspective and keep educating people. Keep putting people out there. We are failing when it comes to the everyday dog owner. All of us big ego dog trainers all over the world, we put out so much information and do a lot of stuff to make us look good in front of each other. Look what I could do. Look what I could do. You know? Big egos. Everybody wants to train dog trainers. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. We will continue to lose millions of dogs until we can focus on the everyday dog owner, because there's millions of them. And right now, the force-free, the purely positive side is kicking our ass in that arena. And as long as they have the numbers and the millions and millions of everyday dog owners believe the crap that they see, more dogs will die every single day. And for the balanced trainers that make us all look bad, the ones that promote putting an e-collar on the dog day one, going up to 100 to stop a behavior and holding the e-collar down, well, you're destroying everything that a lot of good people have worked so hard on to build. Don't call yourself a dog trainer. You're a salesman. And you're an asshole. Let's be honest. That's not dog training. And every time the so-called balanced dog trainers support someone that does that kind of shit, you destroy us. You hurt the industry, and more importantly, you hurt the dogs. Because there's people out there learning from everyone. And if you have a ton of followers and you're a big name and you promote that kind of behavior with an animal, that spreads. The next person that comes to your seminar or watches your videos, they do the same thing. And then they're teaching clients what to do. Punishing the dog, hammering the dog, lighting the dog up. And listen, a lot of these trainers do help a lot of dogs. They help the dogs that comply. The problem is, the dogs that comply can get by. The dogs that don't comply, fry. That's a problem. That's a problem. So for you trainers that come to their side and stick up for them, they've helped a lot. Absolutely. But if you help 1,000 dogs and then torture 2 of them, is that okay? Not in my book. Not in my book. No dog should be treated that way. No dog. Harsh corrections and punishment is not the same as abuse. And what we see today on the balanced side of dog training when it comes to e-collars and prong collars, especially e-collars, we see a lot of abuse. And people don't want to admit it. Okay? It's the truth. It's the facts. It's the facts. So, we're at an hour, guys. I'm sorry this was so long. There was tons of things I didn't go over. A ton of things I didn't go over because I could talk about this stuff for hours. If you want more, if you want to get someone else on here about a lot, if you want more lives, if you want more information on this, let me know. I'm going to start putting out more free content to combat all the paid stuff of people just putting out negative, nasty stuff. We don't need them. It ain't helping nobody. Ain't helping nobody, people. Okay? So I hope this clears up a few things. I tried to address the biggest questions I get. I have clients that make mistakes all the time, and they'll tell me what they're doing or show me a video, and I said, did you look in the book where I told you to look? I have it written down, step by step. I have a section with all the questions and answers, right? I have a section just e-collar training tips. I say, did you look at it? Because you're doing the opposite. Yeah, I read it. No, you didn't. Because it's all there in black and white. Really simple. Really simple. So I just want people to put effort into learning what to do before you do it. That's all. Because if you put the welfare of the animal first, it's hard to fail. Okay, folks? You have questions, ask them here. For anyone who actually sat through an hour of this, I'm so sorry. Go have a drink. Peace.